Hi, have you been asking how to make your trees look less cartoony, awkward, funky, make them a little bit more realistic or three-dimensional without overdoing it? Today I'm answering questions about how to make branches come towards us, how to make them recede into the background. We'll be looking at the easiest mistakes that can be made with trees with simple solutions. And by the end of this video, you'll walk away with simple and easy tips that you can start with straight away. So if that's what you're after, let's get cracking. Trees grow from the bottom up through a cylindrical trunk with cylindrical branches and get thinner and thinner right out to their little itty-bitty tiny twigs, just like our veins. Imagine the human body with arteries and veins, and if they were all muddled up and the same size. The mind just boggles. We need some perspective in our trees, with closer parts appearing larger and more detailed, and the more distant parts fuzzier and lighter in tonal value. And canopies, or the leaves, well, they're like umbrellas or mushrooms, with their innermost parts being more shaded. If we look at the tree we have outside here, my dear husband drew this one, and it's not bad, but it does point out a few things that we often do. So one of the things is this particular tree looks very straight and sleek, and when we draw these straight and sleek lines, there's something unnatural about the tree. So we can tackle this in a couple of ways. First of all, let's do a little mud map of the tree. This is just a few straight lines and a few half circles for the canopies, and it's a map to keep us on track. I'm going to draw two of these. Okay, just to illustrate two ways of doing this. On the first one, instead of using sleek, continuous, straight or curved lines, we can use wiggly lines like this and allowing for gaps. It doesn't have to be exactly where the branch is going to be, but it does allow for our brains to think, oh, there could be a branch there. So here I'm just making this tall trunk, and now we can make a branch that comes out. That's all I'm going to do for now. On this one, if you didn't want to do it that way, you could easily do it with the side of your pencil allowing for the thickness to come straight from your pencil, like this, and just in places varying the pressure so that you end up with gaps. And at the bottom here, I'll make it a bit thinner. I really like this method. Okay, so getting back to our tree here, we have branches that come out the sides. Here we've just made a map, so you can see how the map does help. The fundamentals of tree growth is that they're always fatter at the base of the branch, which is at the trunk, and they get thinner as they go out. And it's often quite hard, even though, look, he did quite a good job here. He made it thinner there and it's a bit fatter there. But see how it's fatter there and thinner there? It's too easy to make these mistakes. It's just way too easy. So there is a way that we can avoid that. If we're doing it with the side of our pencil, it's quite easy to make it fatter here and then only do a section like I did here and then do another section, and always thinking of keeping the branch thinner as we go along. You lift your pencil, you just make short sections. Maybe, you know, the tree has grown so much in a year, it's enough. Okay, so now we can move on to this one. And again, we can draw it in sections. And we consciously make each section thinner than the one before. Drawing our branches and trunks in segments of different sizes also adds heaps of character to the tree. Branches often grow in a bit of a Y shape. And this is a very significant angle in here. It's not 45 degrees, but it's around about 30 degrees. So think of your branches in that manner. They grow out of the trunk, like there, and they kind of grow into this angle, and now they're going to split up again. And look at the fine zigzaggy lines that can really help with the structure of the end twiggy bits. And these are eucalyptus trees, and they will often have new growth coming out of a main branch like this. And then we can come up a little bit zigzaggy. And out of every bend in the zigzag, you can create new branches. Now back to the first tree that we're doing in sections. So let's do a section, and then another section, and a thinner one. And then, we can get into our squiggly fine lines. Here's another fancy trick for our twigs. First of all, it's a good idea to mark the trunk with an oval or circle, showing where the branch emerges from the tree. Will come out, like this. And we'll bend it. Each time it's a little bit thinner. So down here they could be thicker. They can bend all sorts of ways, and they get thinner. We can even put one here. When you start thinking about trees, the way they actually grow, it gets really fun as you take nature into your hands and, you grow the tree. So here's the quick trick for the twigs. You come out of the main branch and you give it a little dot, and so each area of the zigzag where you turn the zigzag, put a little dot, and then automatically these little dots look like little burrs or sections of growth within the branch, and there's something about them that looks a little bit more authentic. So we could even put some of these dots in here. We're just covering a few different things to start with, and then we'll put it all together. Let's do a branch that comes out towards the back and one that comes forward. Just before we move on to backwards and forwards branches, let's keep in mind another common mistake, and that's making branches symmetrical. Trees are very rarely symmetrical, and it's best to keep it as random as possible. It's also best to observe the trees that you are actually drawing or painting, because everyone has its own story. Even sometimes when you look at a tree outside, you might think that these two branches are coming out like a V, but even if you think that, and even if it looks like that, just make one higher and make one lower. It'll be so much better. At the back of this trunk here is a branch coming out. Now, we're doing it in sections. I'm going to go to a new page and show you what I mean. Now I'm going to share with you a really nifty trick to suggest, if nothing else, perspective in trees for branches that go backwards and forwards. So first, let's do a branch that goes backwards. We'll start here lower in the tree, and we'll make a section like that. Now, the one thing you do have to remember is when branches recede into the background, they will get smaller. So my next section is going to be smaller. Okay, so there's a couple of things that are happening here, but watch how easy it's going to be, and then I'll explain what we're doing. Can you already see that these 3 sections that I've drawn are suggesting that the branch is going backwards? Why is this so? First of all, each one of these sections is smaller. It's also a bit shorter. That doesn't always have to be the case because, well, it is the case when they're going kind of backwards, but we could actually, send a little branch out sideways, and that's not particularly shorter than that one. But what's happening here is each of these sections is overlapping the next one. By overlapping, I don't mean just like this. No, I mean it has to be a bit smaller. There has to be these little corners in there. So here's a bigger one, there's a smaller one. This one overlaps that one. We have some corners in there. It totally overlaps it, and so does this one. See the little corner in there? Okay, but to make them look better still, there has to be a change of tonal value or color between the 2 sections. They can't be exactly the same. So let's say this one here is shadowed. So they are cylindrical, remember, so we better do that first. Now for this one, even if it was the same color, you need to leave a little gap just to suggest something different. And look, just by leaving a little gap, you can tell that they're 2 different sections of the branch. Or you can make this darker. So look, actually it would have been better that this one was darker because this one's further back, but it's just an illustration. So all right, there's this branch, and let's leave a little gap. So effectively you have just created perspective for a branch that's growing backwards. Okay, now let's draw a branch that's coming forwards. We'll start it here. This is the node, the section where the branch is going to come out. Here, this is a bit ironic though. Things that come towards us are generally larger. But the branch itself is getting thinner, remember? So there's not going to be that much difference in the size. Let's say it's coming up. And then let's say it's turning a little bit to the side. And then let's say it's coming up, turning a little bit. And again, we're going to make it like this. All I've done right now is drawn 4 sausages. Yes, my friends, that's what they are. Now to make this look a little bit more realistic, what we need to do is the backwards branch we overlapped like this. Now we have to overlap the opposite way. So I'm going to make a little U like that. And now I'm going to make a little U It'll all become clearer very soon. Here's another U. This was a U, that's a U, and now I'm going to make another U. Each one of these U's is a little bit fatter where it starts, where it overlaps, and each time the branch has gotten a little bit thinner. So it's like a U that is like a bit of a vase when you think about it. It is fatter down here and thinner here before the next section comes up, and again it's fatter and thinner. But look, this works really well. So let's make the branch go sideways a bit. When it goes sideways, it tends to be more equal in width. Now, what if it curled around a bit? Let's say it went like this. Okay, so that means we come to here. This is going to overlap. Now, because it's curling towards us, that means that that little bit is behind this one, just like here. And this little bit is in front of it. And then this little bit's going to go behind it. Now, okay, if I've lost you anywhere, don't worry. All you got to do is think. Let's do some U shapes. So we have a U shape. It's fatter here and a little bit thinner here. The next U shape over the top, and we have our corners. And we can turn these U shapes. Fatter, thinner, fatter, thinner, fatter, thinner. So that part of the branch is behind. Can make it a bit shaded in there. And do you see how these differences in tonal value between the different sections really bring out the best in our branches? So then all we've got to do is keep in mind that all these little U's are actually cylindrical shapes, like little vases. So when you're refining these trees, if you don't like the joins, you can, get rid of some. But you don't really have to. My husband, I'm not sure I like the joins. I said, well, without them you wouldn't have the perspective. But I could have only a little bit there, a partial join. But here it's very important because the whole branch has actually turned. Here I could get away with having only half a join. But it's getting a bit technical. Has this helped you with forwards and backwards branches? Yes, no, please let me know. Now let's use some paint and put it all together. So a little bit of burnt sienna, very thin. And I'm going to start at the bottom with my brush out. And just with jagged little lines, just jagged, and going all the way up to the top and keeping it not super straight. And now with some burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine, drop in some darks on the side of it with some lines suggesting the shape, the curve of the tree. I'm going to fuzz that out because whenever you come to the end of a brush stroke and you know you're going to do something up there, it's best just to fuzz it out. So now with a little bit of a bluey grey colour, I'm going to come in with the foliage like that. And then there's another canopy over here. And another little one over here. Now quickly, while that's still wet, come in with the raw sienna, light, and this, and put in the highlights of the foliage, like that. Okay, now I'm going to move in with the branches and using the burnt sienna with a little bit of ultramarine. I'm going to make this a little bit darker up here and put in a few broken lines into this area first. Okay, now let's put in at the branch that goes this way. And remember, roughly the 30-degree up. And now you can bend the branch. Every time we bend the branch, it's going to be a bit thinner, 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 until it turns into twigs. And it can also be separated here. So again, there's a Y shape in there. And I'm just making little sections, and each time they have a gap between them. And that gap does wonders. That gap allows the viewer's mind to go and figure out how these branches and everything goes. We don't have to be the scientist. We don't have to do it perfect. In fact, it's best that we don't. So now I'm going to, I can see that there's a nice branch that goes kind of across the front and over here. That makes it a bit more interesting. And now, remember, we do not want symmetry, so I'm not going to do this branch straight over here. I'm going to move it up a little bit, and it's going to come out of the side of the trunk. So this part is a little bit thicker. Now I can go any way I like, and I'm going to go a bit like that, a bit like that. Doesn't matter where you go. Look, just as long as you've got gaps between. And then you're laughing. I can put one here. That one's a bit nice and thick, but I can make this one a bit thicker, as long, of course, as it isn't thicker than the trunk itself. Got to be. But you know what we can do just up here? I'm going to take a palette knife and I'm going to scratch into there, and it's like it's now two branches. I've separated them. There, no one knows any better. All right, so now for the bigger branch that starts down here somewhere, I'm going to come in with a lighter color with a little bit of the more watered down burnt sienna. And it starts here, so firstly a bit thicker, and then I can bend it. It's like bend it like Beckham. I can bend it. I can do some zigzaggy lines, and like this. I can also see on this corner here, I'm not going to go to the corner. I'm going to come in, because I will create a little corner in there which will act as foreshortening. Going to put a little bit of dark in there. And I might just put in another branch. Let me see where. Now, there's the little white bits between the branches. You can put in little dark bits too, but it doesn't matter that if they're not all there. It's you know, it's a loose painting. So a bit of dark in there. And I can put another branch from here. Zigzag. Oh, look. If I pause my brush for just a moment, like pull a stroke and then pause, I'll make a little dot. Pull, pause, pull, pause. And those little dots look fantastic. Like that. See, this one here is a little bit fat. I can see that. But, yeah, well, it'll have to do. Anyway, let's just come in with some darks just here and there. I'm going to put a little bit of dark in there. And there's some nice special effects here on the tree that go like that. And we do have to do our forward and backward branches. So I'm going to blend that out a little bit like that. And with our burnt sienna and ultramarine, let me see what a good place would be. Well, see this little lump over here? I can transform that into a branch. This one's actually going to come forward. So it's got to go up a little bit first. And then I'm going to go over the trunk, because that certainly suggests that, you know, it's in front of the tree. And see how these lines are broken? I can even give it a twist now. So here is our forward leaning branch. And to lighten it up here, I can always use my palette knife for a slight highlight and make the back of it a bit darker. And then we need our branch from the back. So where could I put that one? Well, I think I'm going to... Well, I am going to put it up here. Now, why here is there's a little bit of light bark there from that part of the tree. I'm going to go kind of around. So this is now behind this branch and behind the trunk. And now I'm going to break this up. See that there? And I'm going to come out. It's going behind the tree, also in a circular motion, and it's back there. Each section of the branch is smaller. That was the most important part there. I've broken up the trunk now because, you know, we don't want it to be too fat up here. I can make this branch go out a little bit more like that. So that's our forward thinking branch. And if there's areas that we're not happy with, like this is a little bit on the thick side, I can just wipe that out and put in just a little bit more foliage. Why not? There. I know there was a lot to take in, but if you keep in mind that squiggly, shorter lines and segments are better than longer ones, keep your branches thicker in the center and thinner outside, use dots and gaps to suggest perspective, use upright U or vase shapes for forward coming branches and upside down ones for receding ones, and start observing trees around you and then growing them your own way. You can do this. Let me know if you have any questions or how I can make this experience better for you. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.